attack. And when I talk about direct attack, I mean attacking a device interface, and that may be going specifically or directly at the SMS interface on a device, or browser exploits. We know that in the PC space, browser exploits are really the leading cause of infections of PCs at this point. Am I right? I've been kind of out of PC security and wired security for about 2.5 years at this point, so that's my best guess. But we do know that the Safari browser and the iPhone, vulnerable to browser attacks, okay? The Android browser and the Android, vulnerable to browser attacks. We just haven't seen these things come to fruition yet, but they will. So, you know, those are examples of direct attacks. Loss and theft. There are studies all over the place. You can Google these studies anywhere you want, and you're going to get statistics that show you the amount of mobile devices, laptops or whatever, that are left in cabs or left in airports or restaurants or whatever. As an organization that is interested in mobile security and protection of mobile data, one of the things that we are interested in doing is how do we protect devices once they're lost? How do we protect the data? I'm going to talk about kind of a research initiative or study that I did back in 2009 that will kind of open your eyes a little bit about the iPhone. Yes, sir.
I was just kind of curious. From my understanding, a lot of mobile devices nowadays are not encrypted. So if someone does get a hold of your mobile device that you leave, can their whole phone or mobile device be dumped and basically all your information be collected?
Yes, and even the ones that are encrypted.
Really?
Yes. That's what I was talking about. Well, I guess I'll tell you now. But in 2009, when I first joined S-Mobile, one of the first things that I was asked to do was look at the iPhone 3GS, because that was the first mobile device that was supposed to have, you know, whole disk encryption, correct? Well, it wasn't. After about a month and a half, myself and 2 other people, we wrote a lot of scripts and we did a lot of things, and we kind of, you know, jumbled through the jailbreak process. We determined that if I can pick up an iPhone 3GS that's encrypted, and I can jailbreak it, I can get all that encrypted data that's stored on iTunes. I can get all that encrypted data, decrypt it, and I have basically the contents of the entire device decrypted. It's possible. What's interesting is this past January, there's a conference called NDSS. It was NDSS 2011. I don't remember what the acronym for that stands for. But at this conference, there was a 19-year-old kid who basically scripted out the same stuff that we did, and in a matter of 6 minutes from the time that he picked it up, plugged the USB cable in, ran some scripts on his laptop, he had decrypted all the data and was staring at unencrypted data from a device that was supposed to be encrypted. That was an iPhone 4. Okay? So it's possible. Data communication and interception. Now, these things that we're talking about, these are all things that we've built the Pulse Mobile product around. But these are also things that the Global Threat Center that we are directly interested in, that we direct our research towards, and we try to understand and figure out ways to protect them. Data communication and interception. Everybody knows that Wi-Fi, if you're on an unsecured wireless network, you can sniff the traffic, you can sniff the contents if it's clear text. You can do the same thing with mobile devices. It's really no different. So if your mobile device is connected to an unsecured wireless network in, say, Starbucks or McDonald's or wherever it may be, and you're communicating with whoever, your bank, or if you're communicating with some site that isn't encrypted in some sort of encrypted tunnel, that data is clear for anybody to have. Okay? It's the same thing on an Android or iPhone device as it is on a PC. Exploitation and misconduct. This is kind of an interesting aspect, and we kind of focus this more to the consumer, but it does have a play in the enterprise where organizations are interested in what their employees are up to, what they're doing, you know, as far as monitoring goes. But we're interested in children and in teens who are, you know, the victims of predators. I mean, you guys see this in the news all the time. It's no longer really a safe community out there. You have adults who are preying on children. This happens in Facebook. It happens via SMS, and we'll talk a little bit about some of the statistics that have come out of our research in exploitation and misconduct. But we do have the ability as an organization and as a product to monitor the communication of children, SMS, email, where they're at, their location, their phone logs, those sorts of things. That's part of what the product has the ability to do. Has anybody, I guess up until probably about 6 months ago, did anybody really see a lot of news around mobile security, mobile malware, mobile threats? This stuff's been in the news for quite a while. And this is just an example, a couple examples of the things that have occurred. RIM warns that an update has spyware. And when I was with S-Mobile, when S-Mobile was S-Mobile, one of the first things that when I was there that we actually came across was the UAE, United Arab Emirates, got together with Etisalat, which is the service provider out there, and they decided that since they're the United Arab Emirates, that they wanted to monitor all of the email communications of all of their BlackBerry users in the entire country. And what they did was they got with the service provider, and the service provider, because they're in the United Arab Emirates, they didn't really have much of a say in it, they created what they called a network update, a network patch, that was supposed to fix some network latency issues with their BlackBerries. But what really happened was it enabled the BlackBerries to monitor email communications and send that data off to a it's not even a third-party server. It was a government-controlled server for the United Arab Emirates. After that update was pushed down to the BlackBerry devices, it was probably about 12 hours later that somebody got interested in all of the communication that was going on with their BlackBerry device that they didn't expect. And they actually looked at the update and they determined that, sure enough, the government got together with the service provider and they pushed down a spyware patch to all of their BlackBerry users. We detected this, and we had a signature for this in place probably about 13 hours after the update was pushed. After 12 hours is when it was found. We had a signature about an hour later. That's just one example, and that's that's government-controlled spyware. SANS did a study in 2010 that said 1 in 5 mobile devices of their registered users, 1 in 5 of them was infected with some sort of mobile malware. Okay. The reason I have this slide on here, and we'll talk about it a little bit, is because I want you to understand that as I've watched the progression of not necessarily mobile threats, as I watched the progression of security trends and attack vectors and threat vectors in the PC space, I'm seeing the exact same progression in the mobile space play out right now, okay? And it's playing out per vendor as the vendors control their market share, just like it did in the PC space. You may remember this. There was a period of time where you were not able to go to a CompuServe or a Best Buy and really have any assurance that the USB stick that you just bought out of a bin didn't have some sort of malware on it. Or you may have bought a Netgear router that had Trojanized firmware, that had some sort of backdoor associated with it. Last summer, Vodafone, which is a large service provider in Europe, they basically contracted a manufacturer to provide their SD cards. Okay, every Android device that they sold for about 6 months came with an SD card from this manufacturer that had the Mariposa botnet and the configure worm preloaded on the SD card. So when those users plugged that USB cable into their PC and it basically auto-ran that SD card, it infected their PCs with the Mariposa botnet and the configure worm. Okay. Vodafone, while they had no idea what was going on, they didn't necessarily do the QA required to make sure that those SD cards were clean, and they took a very, very large hit because of it. That's just one example of the same sort of progression of mobile threats, and we're going to continue to talk about it a little bit more. Mobile spyware. Mobile spyware at this particular point in time is, commercial mobile spyware. 2 of the top 3 BlackBerry infectors that we know of today are spyware. And what I mean by an infector are pieces of malware. So 2 of the top 3 are spyware. 4 of the top 5 Windows mobile infectors are spyware. The rest of them are, at this point, SMS Trojans, and we'll talk a little bit more about those. So what can mobile spyware do? Well, it can intercept email. It can intercept keylog or keystrokes. It can intercept SMS, MMS, GPS location, and in some cases, like with FlexiSpy and Mobile Spy and Mobile Stealth, which are commercial spyware applications, they actually have the ability for the attacker to call the device. The device basically, in the background, answers it, turns on the device microphone so that they can sit there and listen on the phone to the ambient room conversation. Okay? So if you're ever in a meeting or whatever, your device doesn't ring, doesn't vibrate, it doesn't do anything, the spyware answers it in the background, and everything that is being said in that room is available to be listened to by the attacker. Those are the types of things that spyware is capable of doing. commercial spyware at this point is not necessarily very affordable. It's pretty expensive. We, as an organization, we have to actually pay for each one of these new releases and new updates of FlexiSpy, and we're in the process of doing it now for FlexiSpy, which is probably the best one and the most capable of these commercial spyware applications. But there are non-commercial spyware applications as well. We did a study in spring of 2010 where one of the guys on my team was able to take a look at the market application on an Android device, which is the vending APK. We were able to determine and figure out how it communicated with the Android market. He kind of played around with the Google protocol buffers and broke them and broke the communication and was able to create a desktop application that could communicate with the Android market. In doing that, he was able to basically pull down a lot of metadata about Android applications. When I talk about metadata, I mean permissions that an application requests, services, receivers that it has to request, all this data that's in what we call manifest.xml file on an Android application. He's able to pull all this down so that we could do some analysis. And we looked at about 48,000 different Android applications, and we probably found 1,500 spyware applications in the official Android market that were, had just different capabilities. Some of them could just monitor SMS and send the contents of those SMS messages off to a third-party server. Some of them could monitor GPS coordinates, GPS location, send that data off to a third-party server. In one instance, we found an application that was, we called TapSnake. Has anybody heard of TapSnake in Android? Did you hear about this? Okay. What it is it's two applications that are sold, that were free by the developer, just pushed out to the Android market. One of them is a game, okay, that in the background it requests permission to GPS location data. The other piece of it is the application that goes on the attacker's device. So if you're an attacker and let's say you want to monitor where's your wife going? Where are your kids going? Okay. You install TapSnake on their device and, well, you play a little game. You tap on the screen and it directs the snake around a bunch of obstacles. But in the background, it's actually logging GPS coordinates and it's sending those off to a third-party server. That GPS spy application on the attacker's device just connects to the website or the third-party server, and you're just given a map and you're able to track that person's location. Those are the types of things that we found from that study, and this was spring of 2010, which is really, TapSnake was really one of the first major issues that we found in the official Android market, and just from there it snowballed in Android. Some more capabilities that you may have noticed have come from the PC space. Mobile device key logging Trojans. This is basically just a keystroke logger. We can, applications and mobile malware developers, they can write applications that basically hook into the keyboard APIs and capture that data from every keystroke that you make. And this is just an example of one that we did as proof of concept. That's data that we were able to capture from a keystroke or from a keyboard. That's all it is. SMS Trojans. And these are probably the leading threat that we see at this point in applications for Symbian, Windows Mobile, and BlackBerry. Android, we're going to talk pretty specifically about Android because it's really getting its butt kicked right now as far as malware goes. There's no question around it. But an SMS Trojan is an application that, whether it actually functions like a legitimate application, like it's doing the things it's supposed to do, mobile devices give malware developers an opportunity that PCs didn't give them, and that opportunity is to monetize their malware. What I mean by that, malware development and hacking in general is no longer a notoriety, you want to be famous, just want to deface stuff. It is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year business coming out of the Soviet blocs, terrorist organizations, and even just regular groups of people getting together and wanting to get involved in identity theft, fraud, credit card fraud, all of this stuff. Mobile malware gives them a very interesting place to monetize that threat because of SMS. If you have children at home, or if you've ever seen on the television where someone says, hey, text some 5-digit number or text some content to a 5-digit number, that's a premium rate SMS number. And what that does is that charges your mobile account and it deposits money into the owner of that premium rate number. So what we see a lot of are applications that actually function like legitimate applications, but in the background, they're configured to send SMS messages